Hello guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls. It's me, Big Mike, and welcome to the first episode of Freeloader Gaming in almost a year. Freeloader Gaming is the series where I show you how and where to game for free. And fam, I am stoked for this one. This is one of those videos I've been wanting to make since I first started making content. Actually, it was one of those ideas I got when I first decided to be a content creator. I knew at some point in time I wanted to do a video on Sage. As Sage is hands down, fam, hands down my favorite yearly event. But because it's been such a long time since the last episode of Freeloader Gaming, before we jump into talking about Sage, I just want to do a quick recap of the rules. So the rules are pretty simple. Firstly, and most importantly, it must be free in some capacity. Secondly, obviously they must be video games, or at least a platform that provides games. The games and platforms we cover here can be in any format, on any platform, or for any device. Next, no unofficial vanilla ROMs of copyrighted games, though hacks, mods, and bootlegs are fair game. And it's not that I'm anti-ROM, because fam, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum for me, baby. But I just feel like downloading ROMs would kind of make this series too easy and a bit unnecessary, because anybody could download a ROM. And maybe there are a lot of people out there who know about these sites and these games, these free resources I'm talking about, but maybe there are a lot who don't. But I have a feeling more people know how to get free ROMs, free unofficial vanilla ROMs, than there are people that know about, things like Sage or Antstream. And lastly, fam, and this is key, I make absolutely no claims at being a good gamer. I'm just a random fat guy that enjoys gaming. So what exactly is Sage? Sage, or Sonic Amateur Game Expo, is an online, completely fan-driven event that takes place every year. The original focus was solely on Sonic fan games, hence the name. While Sonic fan games still make up a huge chunk of the games, you can also find a sizable amount of ROM hacks and mods, and even a few game engines as well. Also, the focus is no longer solely on Sonic, but other series such as Mario, Pokemon, Dragon Ball, Frogger, Mega Man, Bomberman, Shantae, and many more have been represented. There are also a great deal of indie games that are shown off annually at Sage as well. In fact, if my calculations are correct, at Sage 2021 there were officially 99 indie games compared to the 95 fan games shown off. It has even expanded beyond the games themselves to include other events related to the Sonic fan community, such as streaming by prominent Sonic content creators, fanfiction readings, and most surprisingly, interviews. Now what's really cool here, fam, is that even though Sage isn't affiliated or endorsed by Sega, it has over the years hosted many people officially connected with the Sonic franchise in some capacity, such as Ben Hurst, the writer behind the adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, and Naoto Oshima, Sonic's original character designer. Despite these changes over the years, Sage has remained true to its origins. Sage's goal is to help promote and showcase people's creations in an easy and free way, as well as give developers a deadline to aim for. With 21 years of history behind Sage, it's one of the largest virtual indie and fan game expos in the world, brought to you solely by the passion we have for the community and their work. And as someone who's attended multiple Sages, I can tell you, fam, this is 100% right on the money. The amount of labor that goes into doing something like this on a yearly basis is astronomical, but I can definitely tell, and anybody who's ever attended a Sage event can tell you that it is definitely a labor of love. Unfortunately, that doesn't even begin to do justice to the rich history of this amazing event, as such a topic rightfully deserves its own video. My connection to Sage. Now fam, this is where things are going to get a bit different from the very first video of Freeloader Gaming. Now in the first video I covered Antstream, and I have no connection to Antstream. I didn't know anything about it until I started doing research on that video. But Sage here is different. I have a very deep connection with it. I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit this, but I first stumbled upon Sage by accident. So there's another event in the Sonic fan game community, SHC, Sonic Hacking Contest, which focuses solely on ROM hacks and mods for games, mostly Sonic, but others as well. I had been following the Sonic Hacking Contest since 2013 or 2014, but sometime in 2017, I somehow mistook Sage for SHC. At first I was like, whoa, this is really early, as SHC tends to happen at some point between October and December, and Sage usually in August or September. And also it really struck me that there were a lot of fan games. And then at some point, a light bulb went off in my head and it hit me that this wasn't SHC, but this was in fact a distinct event. And after that, fam, it became one of my most anticipated yearly events. In all honesty, I probably wouldn't be who I am nor where I am today if not for Sage. So if you know anything about me, fam, then you know indie games are a huge part of my life. And the origin of that love can be traced directly to Sage. It's a tale of two Brocks for me. One Crocodile and one Investigator. The spark of love was placed in my heart at Sage 2020 by a game called Crocodile, and that spark would turn into a raging fire at 2020 by Brock the Investigator. I plan to talk more about both of these a bit later when we get to the games, but for now just remember those two titles were important to me. Now, Sage wasn't the sole reason I got into content creation, but Sage and my interaction with the indie game devs and fan game devs there played a huge role in inspiring me, so much so that it was the moment after Sage 2021 ended that I announced my intent to become a VTuber. Now, in order to enjoy Sage, here's what you'll need. You'll need a computer or a smartphone, an internet connection, an operating system of some sort. Now here is where things get a little crazy. Now, most of the games are geared towards Windows, though sometimes you'll find a game with multiple versions, like one, for example, for Windows, one for Mac, one for Linux, one for Android or iOS, though oftentimes they're just one version of a game. However, sometimes you'll also find games that can be played directly in a browser as well. Now, these next two items aren't really necessary, but I would recommend. But in the end, it all just depends on what you want to do. Now, I would also recommend having lots of free space available. Now, I'm the type of person I tend to try to download every single game from Sage. And depending on the year, it can take maybe between 25 to 35 or 40 GB worth of space. Maybe you're not into that, and that's okay, you won't need that much space. Now, an account is optional. However, if you would like to comment on the games or to rate the games, then an account is needed. Additionally, depending on what game you want to play, you may also need some other stuff. Some of the games, such as ROM hacks, will require an emulator. Some of the files are also compressed in archive formats such as a .zip or .rar. And you'll need a special program like Renoir to open these. And with all of that out of the way, let's jump into the games, fam. Unlike Antstream, where all the games are in one place, the situation with Sage is a bit different. Where to actually access the games is going to depend on what games you want. If you want games from the most recent Sage, and if you want to have the best possible Sage experience you can have outside the week of the expo, you can go to sageexpo.org. Now, historically speaking, they usually keep the website up from the most recent Sage until about 2 weeks or so before the next one starts. If you want to play a title from one of the older Sage expos, you can find them at sonicfangameshq.com. You can even find games from the most recent Sage there as well, as this site serves as the host site for all of the games. The games at the Sage Expo are divided by type: fan games, indie games, here called original games, mods, and frameworks. Since the very first Sage, there existed a booth system where every game entered has its own digital booth to present itself and its development progress. This system was inspired by the format used by E3. One final note on the games. The games you find here are going to be in various stages of development. You're going to find some complete games, but you'll also see a great deal of demos. Some are demos because they're still being worked on. However, in the case of the indie games, some are demos of complete commercial games. Also, unless otherwise noted, all gameplay footage is taken from Sage builds of games and may not reflect their current or final forms. Now, to actually play the games, what you're going to want to do is look at the right side of the booth. You should see at least one file in which you can download. So right click it, save as, and then once it's done downloading, go to that location and voila. If it's an exe file, you should be able to open it right away and begin playing. But maybe it's not an exe file, maybe it's a zip file or WAR file. So in that case, you're going to need to use a special program like WinZip or WinWAR to open it. So in that case, you're going to need to extract the file first. And after that, you can enjoy your game. The first type of games we're going to be discussing are the fan games. And the first fan game we're going to be talking about, fam, is Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit. Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit is a remake or perhaps a reimagining of what the Game Gear Sonic title of the same name would have been like if it had been released for the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive. For those unfamiliar with the story, this game takes place in the aftermath of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and the opening level, original to this remake, does a great job relaying this fact. Dr. Eggman has managed to obtain one of the Chaos Emeralds, and while a treasure hunter, Fang the Sniper, formerly known as Knack the Weasel, is on the hunt for them as well. And for some reason, Knuckles is back to giving Sonic and Tails a hard time. The original makes it out that Dr. Eggman has tricked Knuckles again, but thankfully this fan game remedies that absurdity. As a matter of fact, fam, this fan game does many great things to tie it into the continuity of the mainline Genesis or Mega Drive Sonic games. In regards to the level design, it uses the original aesthetics of every zone, but adds a completely new layout and new gimmicks as well. And not to be outdone by the visuals, the music is also worthy of the original trilogy as well. Be sure to check this one out. It feels like it could be the true spiritual successor to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And fam, that is not a claim I make lightly. Trust me on this one. The next game we're going to be talking about is Sonic 3D in 2D. Sonic 3D in 2D by Sotanuk is a fan game that sets out to answer the question, what if the final Mega Drive or Genesis game never moved away from the formula established by Sonic 3 and Knuckles, with bosses in every act and in-game cutscenes to move the plot forward? What if it was a proper entry into the main series and a bridge between Sonic 3 and Knuckles and Sonic Adventure? And fam, the answer it gives to this question is quite an impressive one. So the story remains the same, but the main gimmick of collecting flickies has been scrapped in favor of more traditional 2D Sonic gameplay mechanics. I gotta say fam, I definitely gotta say it takes a great deal of talent to turn Sonic 3D Blast into this. Much like with Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit, the stages here take the aesthetic cues from the original but are beautifully reimagined as if they were from a 2D Sonic title. And one of the most pleasant surprises about this fan game are the bosses. Every zone contains a mini boss battle for a Chaos Emerald at the end of every Act 1. And I won't spoil anything here, but I will say some of these mini bosses were very unexpected, but unexpected in a good way. So if you're looking for a breathtaking vision of what could have been the best title in the final years of the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, then be sure to give this one a play. The final fan game we're going to be looking at today is Sonic Before the Sequel Plus. Sonic Before the Sequel Plus by Leloid671 is a remaster of the original by Lake Pepper. Sonic Before the Sequel is an interval that takes place between the ending of Sonic 1 and the start of Sonic 2. This interesting project tells the story of how Sonic and Tails met. Throughout the game, the story switches back and forth between the two as Sonic is attempting to prevent Eggman from launching his Death Egg, and Tails is trying to catch up to Sonic. Throughout the game, you'll come across numerous cutscenes that will both tie each zone and part of the narrative to the next, and explain the perspective shift between Sonic and Tails. The soundtrack is filled with many ear-pleasing original songs that feel right at home in a Sonic game, including a phenomenal Green Hill Zone theme remix. The next kind of game we're going to be looking at are the original games, or the indie games, and the first one we're going to be talking about is Anna Lynn. Anna Lynn is an indie game developed by Cruz Elroy. It's done in a retro arcade style that would feel right at home in an 80s arcade. It takes a great deal of inspiration from an eclectic collection of arcade classics. You control the game's namesake, Anna Lynn, as she makes her way through each stage, collecting coins, eating snacks, and avoiding multicolored snakes named Randy, Handy, Candy, and Mike. When Anna Lynn grabs a ruby, she can kill all the snakes. And all of this is inspired by Pac-Man. In fact, many have described it as being Pac-Man as if it was a platformer. In some later stages, there are rope climbing gameplay elements inspired by Donkey Kong Jr. While also on the subject of inspiration, some of the level design is inspired by Dig Dug. Much like those great quarter guzzlers of the 1980s, Anna Lynn is a simple concept that is both fun and challenging. Anna Lynn received a full release on Steam on January 30th, 2021. The next game we're going to be talking about, fam, is Big Boy Boxing! Big Boy Boxing by Soup Masters is a boxing game with a great deal of heart and with a sense of humor that pulls no punches, fam. In it, you take control of an up-and-coming boxer being trained by a now-retired legend, Hank. The controls and the gameplay are very simple, and that makes it easy just to pick up and play. I'm gonna be honest, fam, I don't even like boxing games, or most sports games in general, but this game has a very special place in my heart. It's chock full of wacky, lovable characters, and voice acting that really floats like a butterfly and stings like a bee, baby. This demo is a must-play, fam. So do yourself a favor and step in the ring with Big Boy Boxing.
Press these buttons to greet him. Now press up and punch to say hello to his face.
The next one we're going to be discussing is Brock Crocodile. Now this one is important for me, fam. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of the games responsible for my love of indie games. I was originally attracted to it because I thought it was a Sonic fan game. As a developer, DigiCroc was quite inspired by the art style of Sonic, and he executed this style flawlessly. It was the wonderful characters and the exciting gameplay that kept me though. In addition to Brock's design, a lot of the visuals seem Sonic inspired as well, most notably the level opening transitions. And I'm not sure if this is intentional or if it's a coincidence, but the climbing up the wall mechanic in the Bee Battleship stage brings to mind the similar gimmick in the Beehive stages in Donkey Kong Country 2. Add to this stellar pedigree a touch of Bionic Commando in Brock's whip mechanic, and you have what could very well be the best platformer in recent years. If you know anything about me, you know platformers are by far my favorite genre, and this game is a love letter to 90s platformers. Also, I just gotta point out, I'm not a fairy, but damn fam, Brock's sister is mighty thick. All thirstiness and degeneracy aside, as of now, the full game is set to be released in 2023. And the final original or indie game we're going to talk about today is Brock the Investigator. And fam, without a shadow of a doubt, Brock the Investigator is the most important game in regards to my love of indie games. Brock the Investigator by Cowcat Games is an innovative game that combines both the point and click and beat 'em up genres.
There, it's working, but maybe not for long.
To the best of my knowledge, it's the first game to merge these two genres together. This makes the gameplay and even how you approach it quite dynamic. At some points in the adventure, you'll be exchanging blows with rat gangbangers, and at other times, you'll have to put on your thinking cap and gather clues.
I told you, I lost it on Drummer Street. I insist. Let me do my job.
Add to this unique mix an art style that is reminiscent of late 80s, early 90s Disney Saturday morning or weekday afternoon cartoons such as Tailspin. What is really interesting is that this art style is set to a gritty detective story set in a dystopian future. And this mixture works extremely well. The art is amazing and it's only surpassed by the voice acting. Here, have a listen.
No, I'm sorry. I love you, but I'm just not strong enough. Look,
and these characters aren't just pleasing to look at or to listen to, they have a great deal of heart too. Take for example the dynamic that exists between Brock and his stepson Graf. Their relationship actually feels like a real one that would exist between people in such a situation.
kids.
Brock is a character with a great deal of emotional depth as well, and is easily one of the more lovable characters in all of gaming.
Act before thinking.
And as a fellow overweight guy in his mid-30s, I can say I definitely identify a lot with Brock.
Not when we're short on time.
This game was my most anticipated game of 2022.
I'll speed up the
So
pace.
give Brock the Investigator a shot, and you'll find out why I've waited for this game for so long.
Invention. Cold air is pushed to the top, so the hot air stays at the bottom to keep the clothes warm.
After being in development since 2016, this amazing game was released on August 26th.
Don't tell me you're gonna steal something from my fridge.
Not stealing. Just, consider this an advance payment.
The next type of game we're going to be discussing are the hacks or mods. And the first hack or mod we'll be discussing is Pintufa the Cat. Pintufa the Cat by Vada Pega is a Sonic ROM hack with a long history at Sage. It first appeared at Sage 2011 and has since returned to the Expo in numerous incarnations, most of which are available in this ROM hack. And fam, this game has one interesting story. According to the developer, the story is as follows. In the Yo world, a catastrophe had bestowed upon the lands. An unknown object hit the Ultai star, causing it to flood the world with a liquid known as Star Tear, which is about the same as ocean water, but much more saltier, with a hint of melon. To prevent further damage, pipes were built everywhere to keep the liquids away. However, this event ultimately led to a shortage of crops, including tomatoes, which are one of the most important ingredients for making efrancesina, Pintufa's favorite dish. It is the Red Cat's task to stop the star from crying and to prevent it from happening again, to ensure francesinhas are possible in the future. There are rumors about this ancient artifact known as the Plot Bullshit Bell that is known to prevent anything from crying with its chime. Perhaps this item will aid the Red Cat on its journey. With that out of the way, both the gameplay and the design takes inspiration heavily from both the Sonic and Super Mario Bros. 2D platformers. I can also detect a bit of Bubsy the Bobcat in there as well. When it comes to the level design, you can see both Mario-like elements such as green pipes and blocks, as well as Sonic influence as well, and this is particularly true in the level layout and the monitors. The gameplay is a little tricky, as Pintufa controls a bit like Sonic 1 Sonic. being that he can roll into a ball, but only if he's already moving, so he can't do a spin dash, unfortunately. Also, unlike Sonic, and probably more like Mario or Bubsy, Pantoufle cannot attack enemies by jumping from below. And if you're used to playing Sonic, that could take some getting used to. The next ROM hack we're going to be discussing is Sonic 1 Delta. Sonic 1 Delta by Team Delta is different from every game we've talked about so far. While other games we have talked about present a story, this unique ROM hack attempts to share history. As opposed to making a new story, adding new characters, levels, or gimmicks, it attempts to recreate Sonic 1 with as many design, gameplay mechanics, and more that were present in the pre-release materials but not in the final game as possible. If you're familiar with Sonic 1, there are some rather interesting differences to note, but I'll just mention two big ones here besides the ball in Green Hill Zone you likely just saw. The first being the UFOs in Marble Zone. This one seems really out of place to me. I don't really see a connection between UFOs and Roman ruins. The second being Spraying Yard Zone. While I do have to admit the background may be seizure-inducing, I do like it. I can't quite put my finger on why, but for some reason it reminds me of the cityscapes you see in the backgrounds of 80s and early 90s anime. Now with all of that out of the way, my hat is definitely off to the Delta team. I can only imagine the amount of work that went into gathering these pre-release materials and all the effort they spent in trying to recreate the game as it was before it was released. If you're into Sonic, the history of the series, game development, or maybe even lost media, be sure to give this one a go. And the final game we're going to be discussing today is Streets of Rage 2 Robotnik Wars. Streets of Rage 2 Robotnik Wars by Soda MacGyver is a ROM hack that combines two of Sega's most celebrated franchises, Sonic and Streets of Rage. At first glance, this appears to be a simple palette swap hack. But it's actually much more significant, fam. Not only are both the playable characters and the enemies completely changed to characters from the Sonic franchise, but the playable characters are given their own unique movesets. While the stage layout and music remain the same, this hack also features a brand new story. So if you like beat 'em ups, Sonic, or game mashups in general, this one is a great experience. Also, I have to admit, I really love seeing Sonic threaten someone with a knife, or Knuckles take out his frustrations with a pipe. After looking at the games, we now have to ask one final question. Is Sage worth it?
What do you mean, is it worth it? I thought you said these games are free.
Well, Silver Ice, is it worth your time? And it absolutely is. Were you really expecting me to say something different? And no, I'm not just saying this because of my love for Sage, but I firmly believe this is well worth your time. Sage has something that is sure to interest almost any gamer, no matter what kind of games they're into. You'll find games of many different genres and graphic styles, way more than what we have discussed here today. And no matter what type of game you're into, the fan games, the originals, or the mods, they're all passion projects people have dedicated months and years of their lives to developing. The tagline for Sage 21 was "Express your love to the world," and you can experience this love firsthand by checking out these games. But please don't take my word for it. Check out Sage for yourself, and if you want to get the full Sage experience, be sure to check out Sage 22, running from September 2nd to September 9th. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully the next episode in the series will be out much sooner. If you really like my channel and would like to support my content, please consider donating to my Ko-fi. For the time being, anything I receive via Ko-fi will go towards helping me to build my dream PC and towards becoming a VTuber. I also want to give a special thanks to my dear friend Silver Ice for all of their help with their voice work. Also, special thanks to Fran, who does a wonderful job doing my art. A special thanks to all of my friends on Twitter. I wouldn't be here without you all. And most importantly, a special thanks to all of you for watching. Please like this video if you liked it. Dislike it if you dislike it. Feel free to comment below and let me know what you think. And if you like my content, please subscribe and turn your notifications on. Until next time, fam, remember, just be yourself and you'll be awesome. Peace out!